Okay, welcome to the return of the virtual history StuyPulse history lessons. Back after several weeks. This week we're going to talk about 2012 Rebound Rumble, and joining me is the 2012 President of Engineering, Jake Potter. Thanks for coming on, Jake.
Yeah, hi everyone.
So let me go through your StuyPulse resume a little bit as I remember it, and then you add anything I forgot. So,
Sounds good.
2009, you made the empty cell thing,
That's right.
which actually kids look at a lot. And
Well, it's
ask
very
questions
pretty.
about. It is very pretty, but it also there's like some neat ideas there.
Yeah, my dad helped me with that one a lot. So
Yeah, and then Joe Ricci just overtook it and called it the Ricci. Even though I don't
it's
think he built
it's important to
anything
be
on.
the idea man.
And then I know in 2011 you designed and built the claw on Desdroid.
That's right. Yep.
And then 2012 you were just in charge of everything, design the robot, design the drivetrain.
Yeah, that's right. So everything that's not working, I'm sorry.
I mean, it's StuyPulse back in that day. It was a lot of stuff not working, but okay. Okay, so I thought this week we'd start by just like talking a little bit about you.
Sure.
So Jake, what do you do now that you've graduated from StuyPulse?
Okay. Yeah. So out of Stuyvesant, I went to the Cooper Union. I have a bachelor's of mechanical engineering. Graduated in 2016, and I've been working as a design engineer at a company in Long Island called Zebra Technologies for the last 4 years. So I design kind of a boring sounding product. I design barcode scanners, but it's actually it's a lot more fun than you would think, and it's a lot more like FIRST than you would expect. We work in very cross-functional teams, and we get to work in we go to like assembly lines and things like that, and it's very much like the robotics environment where you're solving problems on your feet very quickly. So I enjoy it a lot. There's actually a lot of FIRST alumni and mentors there who all work within the FIRST Long Island teams. So if you're a StuyPulse alum or soon-to-be alum, do look for Zebra Technologies. Our internship program is really great. And we're really trying to hire a lot of FIRST students.
Yeah, and it's one of the big sponsors in Long Island, right?
That's right. We are like I don't know, I don't remember exactly what we call it, but we're one of the top sponsors in the region for our regionals.
And then tell me if I'm wrong, but did you guys make the system this year where it like tracked certain
Yes,
teams?
yeah. So of course, I forgot about that.
I'll try to
I was
load
not
that up while you talk
too,
about it.
I wasn't too closely involved in that process, but the system is called, oh no,
Uh-oh, sorry, I put you on the spot here.
the guys at Zebra are gonna kill me if I get the name wrong, because we've changed the name a couple times, and we're supposed to use whatever the correct name is. But if you're familiar at all with football,
It's
then
called the,
you know. Okay, Zebra Motions Works is what it's called now. It used to be called a DART system. It's the exact same technology that they use in the NFL that they call, I think, Next Gen Stats, where
mm-hmm.
they're tracking football players. It's the same system applied, but to robots. And so in Long Island, we're getting incredibly good scouting data um, through our ability to track in real time the locations and velocities of robots. And we put 2 tags on them, one on each shoulder, just like you would on a football player, and you can track orientation. So we generate these trajectory, these like snake maps. We generate heat maps, so you can see where a team spends most of their time in a match. It's a really fantastic technology, and they were going to roll it out all over the country this year before things went pear-shaped.
Yeah, I remember like I was just watching some matches and I saw this cool thing at the bottom. It's like, whoa, this is amazing. Hopefully we
Yeah,
get
it
this
is
for
really
like all
incredible.
matches soon first.
Yeah, it's absolutely getting pushed to more events. I know that we were trying to get it to all of our sort of all of the like New York events. We were going to try and go to First in Michigan. We were going to try and go to Pacific Northwest, and unfortunately, all of those events were canceled. So
I wonder
next
if
year.
you could use the data from here and just like automate some program that would tell you where teams spend most of their time, like so you don't have to actually watch the matches on like.
Yeah, so that's a great question. If people would like to know more, they can absolutely reach out to me, and I'll connect them with the people who actually know what's going on and how the system works. But all this data is available through, I think, a Blue Alliance API. So you can get it's basically baked into the field management system data. So it logs. Sorry, this is not my area of expertise. I'm a mechanical engineer, not a digital engineer. So the field management system constantly logs data about the field and about robots. And
like this stuff here.
Yes, but not just cumulative for the match, but also like at specific at all times throughout the match. So you can create graphs. So
I've actually
the motion
seen,
work is in that. Yeah.
I've seen over the last few years some really clever stuff utilizing just this, just this box of data, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where people will just create simple programs that pull hang percentages across a regional, for example.
Right. Yeah. So you could probably very easily take the data for all the teams and figure out what's the average fastest robot that year, or the robot with like the best acceleration. Those would be very easy calculations probably for the teams. And then you could get into more complicated things like which teams are traveling in like the narrowest band of the field, for example, and which teams are moving the most randomly. There's all sorts of crazy data analytics you can do.
You can even figure out if teams were defended, right? By if there was a team near them for like a significant period of time.
That's true. You could check for things like that through kind of like sudden accelerations and that kind of information.
All right. That was really cool. I wasn't intending to go into that, but that was really.
No, I'm always happy to proselytize for my company, and this is one of the ways that we do it. So.
And then just talking a little bit more about you, Jake. You still mentor an FRC team. Which team do you mentor?
Right. So I mentor a team in Long Island, Team 6423, the Iron Patriots, at Ward Melville High School. And in addition to that, I'm a member of the Regional Planning Committee for First Long Island. So I've been mentoring with the team for about 3 years. And that's a program through FIRST. So again, if you come work for us at Zebra, we will pay you to go mentor FIRST robotics teams.
That's always a sweet gig.
Yeah.
Whenever a company pays for that. Do you know how far you guys are from Stony Brook?
We are very close to Stony Brook.
Okay. We have a lot of alumni at Stony Brook, some who hopefully are watching this, so maybe they'll be interested. They'll reach out to you about mentoring.
Yeah, fantastic. Please, I'd be happy to help you mentor. I'd be even more happy to help you become a volunteer for an event.
And lots of them have volunteered at events that we attend, so
yeah.
I'm sure. I'll put your email in the message that has the.
I'll give you my my Zebra email here. That's the best one to reach me at.
I think we have like 5 alumni from this season who are going to be at Stony Brook in the coming year.
That's fantastic. So they're definitely welcome to come volunteer.
So let's start talking about the 2012 season. I thought we'd start like we do every week with the game animation, and hopefully I won't blow people's ears out this week.
We'll give it a good college try.
Yeah. Okay.
Welcome to the 2012 First Robotics Competition and this year's game, Rebound Rumble. Rebound Rumble is played on a 27 by 54 foot court. Alliances of 3 teams each operate their robots from behind alliance walls at the ends of the court. 4 scoring hoops are located in each alliance wall, positioned at 3 different heights. A low barrier extends across the middle of the field. 3 bridges cross over the barrier. Each bridge has 3 positions. tilted toward either end of the field, or balanced level and stable on the central barrier. Rebound Rumble is played with compact foam basketballs. The objective is to score as many basketballs as possible in the hoops at the far end of the court. The higher the hoop, the more points it's worth. Robots can track the reflective vision targets above each hoop. This allows them to target hoops from anywhere on the court. The match begins with each robot touching their key at the far end of the court. Robots can be preloaded with 1 or 2 basketballs each. A 15-second hybrid period starts the match. During hybrid, robots can score basketballs using pre-programmed instructions. Every basket scored during this period gets a 3-point bonus. During the hybrid period, one Alliance player can command their robot by signaling to their Kinect motion sensor.
I just remember 254's human player.
In this period,
I'm
human drivers step forward to take the controls. As the teleoperated period starts, teams command their robots to score as quickly as they can. Balls can be scored from anywhere on the court. The top of the key is a safe zone. Robots shooting from here are protected from interference by their opponents. But robots not touching this safe zone have to deal with defending opponent robots. As balls are scored, they are returned by players at the corners of the court. Robots can only hold 3 balls at a time. Once full, they drive the length of the court to score. They can use the bridge or cross the barrier to get there. Near the end of the match, robots drive onto their bridge and balance it for bonus points. 2 robots on their own bridge will get even more points. Each bridge can fit up to 3 robots, but it will be a tight squeeze to get them all on there. In qualification matches, both alliances earn cooperation points if they work together to have red and blue robots balance on the center bridge. This is critical for the team's tournament seeding position. Cooperating will be just as important as winning if you want to be successful. Good luck, and we'll see you at the competitions.
All right, so before we start jumping into our robot, I thought it would be good to talk a little bit about the strategy of this game and kind of how we saw it at first. Jake, I don't know, whatever you can recall from the start of what we were looking at. This was the first year they had the extra ranking points, which is pretty popular nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, that was like, whoa, just as important as a win. That's crazy. Dude, what do you remember from kickoff?
I think we looked at this game and we thought in our heads, this is going to be easy. There's only like 2 things you have to do, and one of them is driving. So basically, it was important to be able to get onto the bridge, and stay on the bridge, right? And it's important to score the basketballs. That's at a surface level. That's all you have to do, right?
Yeah.
So I think we were excited about this, and we were feeling really good because we're like, these are things we can do. We can throw balls, and we can drive a robot.
And I remember we put a lot of emphasis on just being able to lower the bridge really easily, and we made the nice like passive bridge lower where we could just lower it and just drive in, which is actually I think the best
the robot actually featured. It was designed with 2 passive bridge lowering systems, right? So there's the that fork in the back, which lowers the bridge so that we can get onto it, but also the ramp in the front. We extended that out a little bit so that you could push the bridge for someone on the other side to get on.
Yeah, and we'll see some clips of that later on. But I think those were like both really elegant features.
Yeah, we were a very good bridge robot. Like I said, we were really good at driving at the time. We weren't as good at throwing balls as we thought we were.
No, we thought it would be a lot easier to shoot the balls. I remember we built our prototype and it was just everything was going right in the hoop. And I was like, this is going to be so good. It's so easy. I'm picking up these balls. It's going to be so easy. But little did we know foam kind of sucks to pick up off the ground.
No, yeah.
It
haunted me as a mentor this year.
Yeah, right away this year I knew it was like, okay, this is the number 1 obstacle in this game. Just getting these game pieces to move through your robot without just colliding with each other and sticking together.
That's exactly what I told my team. I was like, these balls are not going to go anywhere you want them to go.
Yeah. They're like, people are like, oh, they'll just funnel. Like, you put a polycord thing, and I'm like, no. They don't do that.
No.
They'll just go that way. They'll just jam. And then I think the other thing we really missed on was we thought the triple balance would be pretty much impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So we just went long because we figured it would make it a lot easier for us to do the quad-partition bridge.
So actually, I was thinking back about the way that the robot was designed, and I think the reason we went long was more about fitting 3 balls in the robot at a nice angle, and what we really missed in that part of the build was that we could have done the out of bumper intake.
Yeah.
That was something that we didn't think of.
Yeah,
but the robot is actually designed to do a triple balance. Even though it's long, the center of gravity is over like the
all the way on one end.
back pair of wheels. It's in between. I think it's right over the third set of wheels. So when the robot balances on the bridge, it can extend out pretty far.
Yeah, but we still have to be like on the end, and we really can only have one long robot on the thing. Whereas if we were wide, it gives us a little bit more flexibility with that. And also being long made our intake smaller.
Yeah, that was really a killer thing, was making the intake too small.
And I really thought it would be fine, and it really was not fine.
No.
I was like very convinced that it would just be, you pick it up, it's a game piece, whatever.
Right. Yeah. Well, we put a lot of faith in our driver that year.
Alex.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the drivetrain since we're on the topic.
Okay, I got lots of notes for you.
Okay, well, you designed the thing, so.
All right.
Go ahead.
All right. So the overall theme for JoeBot is Jake had lots of things that he wanted to try, regardless of what the best solution was for the robot. As long as it was sort of like in the right ballpark, we were going to try it. So the 8-wheel layout, cantilevered wheels.
First time we did a cantilever drivetrain.
Right. Technically the second time. I did build during the fall semester. I put together a really basic West Coast drivetrain.
Right. But I'm saying on a comp bot.
But on a competition bot, this was our first time doing the cantilevered wheels, first time doing pneumatic wheels, first time doing, I guess in a long time, doing belt-driven wheels.
I don't think we'd ever done belt-driven before.
No, not even like one of the older robots had like a V-belt.
Oh yeah, maybe. But I think that's like very different. There were V-belts on the older robots. Yeah. And also we have like pneumatic tires on like Lola, but this is definitely no one who is currently on the team had done any of this stuff.
Right, and these were things that were starting to like be trendy in first. So this was us almost trying to catch up a little bit. And this was also a custom chassis. Over the last 3 years, we've been doing kit, like the C-frame kits from AndyMark. So this was our first custom chassis in a while.
And also our last. I think this is the last time we ever did a custom chassis.
Really? Yeah, because everything is now the Vex. What is it? Yeah.
The Vex Versa chassis.
The Versa frame, yeah.
Yeah, you can think of it kind of as a custom chassis.
Yeah, that's still kind of a custom chassis because you still have to.
You still customize it.
Do a lot of work. Yeah. But this was we built this out of just simple extrusion. Nothing pre-drilled in it. Yeah. So that was the drivetrain. So it's 8 wheels, and then the center 4 are dropped, and we cut costs on the pneumatic wheels by getting our tires from McMaster and our hubs from AndyMark. And on paper, it looked like we could get them to fit together, and then it turned out they didn't. So all those wheels are custom turned to fit the tires.
There were no FRC 6-inch pneumatic tires. Everyone who used pneumatic tires that year used 8-inch ones. Nowadays, West Coast Products sells it. And we basically, I think we bought these pneumatic tires off McMaster, popped out the hubs, took the AndyMark 8-inch hubs.
They were steel hubs, yep.
Yeah, took the AndyMark 8-inch hubs and turned them down. And what was interesting is a lot of people were asking us about them. And one of them was someone who I know has worked on stuff for West Coast Products. So I'm convinced
Ooh.
that the product stole our idea.
Well,
That's okay.
we can take
I
credit
like
for it,
that.
but that was definitely the trend was going to move that way anyway. So I don't personally take credit for it. Yeah.
A
So
lot
those.
of teams either did 8-inch pneumatic tires or 6-inch just non-pneumatic wheels because getting over that bar really wasn't as big of a deal as we thought it was.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons we built in these pneumatic wheels, right? We were trying to get a lot of traction, which we did get to our more to our deficit than to our benefit because we
Turning was
couldn't
hard.
turn. But it did get us over the bump really easily.
We did fly over that bump, no problem.
Yeah, again, that was part of placing the center of gravity way back, so you could really easily pop the front up.
Damn, the 2012 video of stuff. There is a 2012 video. I couldn't find it. I still can't find it. Oh well. The other
Yeah,
thing
I
I
have some
remember.
videos, but I don't think they're not that good. They're videos that I took.
If you want to share them, you have them up.
I have no idea where they are.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't find them today.
So the other thing about the drivetrain that was a big lesson learned is we originally had 9mm belts.
Right. Yeah. So again, that was one of those things that we looked at on paper and we're like, I think we can get away with this. And it turned out that we couldn't because there was so much internal friction in the drivetrain to begin with, and just the 9mm belts are not really rated for the rigors of competition. So now that gearbox ended up getting switched to being to belt driving the first sets of wheels.
Yeah, so I remember when we first ran it, like we actually didn't get the belts till really late in the season, so we would just have this we had this robot built and we were practicing shooting and just like tuning that and just it didn't drive at all.
Oh, I don't remember that. Yeah, I guess that might have been the case because we had to get them from Gates, and
yeah,
that supply chain is probably a lot better now,
I don't
right?
know. Yeah, and also just like ordering took a long time because everything had to be done like through 3 people and then through Cologne, and it was just like very slow.
Yeah, well, we were trying to order a lot of interesting things again to try and do new stuff.
I just have this distinct recollection of when we first drove it and we changed directions. It just went like you could hear the belts just skipping.
Yeah, I remember being like called down from the lab and being shown just like shredded belts.
Yeah, we just shredded through them. So I think what we did is we changed, like one of them we were able to change to 15mm belt, and one we were able to change to chain, and it like drove.
That's possible. I think my recollection is that we just changed both like the number 3 pair and the number 4 pair to chain in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what the drivetrain was originally not the drivetrain, but rather the gearbox. That's what the gearbox was originally designed for.
Right, because we use like an anti-mark gearbox.
Right.
I think we use the super shifter. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. We found 2 super shifters in the lab, and I was like, we're going to use these.
Yeah, because they're free. And
we wanted to bring shifting back as well. After we were gonna make it work this time. This time it was going to be useful.
It is useful now. We do use it, and
yeah,
successfully now. But yeah, in 2011, the problem wasn't shifting. The problem was the wheels. But whatever.
Right.
Shifting back then was more of a problem because we were very hesitant to use pneumatics, and this was the year we brought back pneumatics.
Right, because this like the year before, I think they had introduced the smaller compressors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that made it a lot easier. And also off-board compressors were allowed, which both of those things made it a lot easier.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was another one of the things that was just like, I really want to do pneumatics. So let's come up with solutions that use pneumatics.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. That's always tough in FRC, like balancing that. Like, it's hard to try everything and be successful, but you have to try new things to be successful.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why the off season is great. Like, I think teams who utilize the off season well and try out all of these things are very successful.
Yeah, that's true. Getting to try the new things off season is better than doing them in the competition.
Yeah, before COVID happened, I wanted to do, one of the kids really wants to make a swerve drive. So I wanted him to make a swerve drive and put a 118 every bot on top of it. And just take it to a couple off-season events.
Sure, yeah.
Learn some stuff. And then COVID happened, so.
Yeah.
Uh, moving on. So let's talk a little bit about our shooting strategy. So when we
Yeah.
saw the game, we decided to shoot from the fender, which is like right up close,
Mhm.
As opposed to the key because it was a shorter shot.
Yeah.
And when we prototyped it, it worked really well.
Yeah. So there's like a couple of what I thought at least were good reasons to use the fender. So one of them was that the fender acts as a physical hard stop, right? Like you drive up, you know exactly what your distance is from the hoops. And we thought doing that, getting that hard stop would make it easier to shoot versus, even though we were losing, I think at the key, right, you're protected.
Mm-hmm.
At the fender, you're not protected. So that was the trade-off. We would get the hard stop so we could shoot more accurately, but give up the protected zone.
Right. Well, I don't think the protection really came in that much because we weren't accurate enough for teams to really be
I guess
playing
not.
heavy
Yeah.
defense on us. But
No comment.
if we had started becoming like really good, it would have become
Right.
a problem.
Yeah. The other reason to go to the fender was that the trajectory for the two, for like the high and the mid, were roughly the same. So from the key, you would have had to have better control over the ball. You would have to basically have two different throws if you were shooting for both. So at the fender, if you're forced to do one of the sides instead of the top, you don't have to change anything about your shot.
I do think there were two things about the key that we missed out on, like
Mhm.
when we were strategizing. One is how close it is. Like I thought it was so much further away just from looking at the game. But it's actually, if you only need like part of your bumper breaking the plane. If you look at where we are on the field here in this picture.
Right. It's only like 2 robots.
Yeah.
1.5 robots back. I think we also just, for some reason, really underestimated how far we could throw this basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it actually is an easier shot from the key because you can just nail it off the backboard. And the backboard
right.
is more
Yeah.
exposed. So it was actually easier to be more accurate from the key. Which is, nowadays we tape out the field and we play the game as humans during kickoff. And this is one of the reasons that we started doing that. It's just like we missed this spacing.
Yeah, I think that was really the problem, was that for a lot of these things, I was leaning on our past experiences and kind of theoretical math, and we didn't get enough hands-on experience with these balls. So we didn't expect a lot of the problems that would come from these balls.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of it comes with just experience in first. Like I think 2012 was the first year that Joe Ricci wasn't around and Tom wasn't around as much. So like we didn't have, like this was my third year mentoring. I didn't really know what I was doing either. Like we didn't have a lot of that backlog of people going, oh, I've made that mistake, or I've seen our team make that mistake. Here it is. Don't make that mistake.
Right. Yeah.
So we like fell into every trap in the book. But it wasn't like that inaccurate. Like it hit shots. We
scored points.
Yeah, we scored points. It was pretty good. But the last thing I will say about the shooter was this was like one of the first years that Dan was like really heavy, like I'm right about something and people aren't listening, which was having a flywheel on our shooter.
Okay.
Like
I don't
know if you
remember this as well.
but we called the shooter a flywheel.
Yes.
Which is
and it wasn't heavy. And
right. It wasn't heavy.
Dan kept trying to add weight. I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah. Dan was like, you need to add weight to this. You need to add weight to this, or it's just going to slow down between shots. And then we just had this problem where it would just slow down between shots. So we added a sensor up top during the season, so that like the ball would stop at the sensor and then go through. But it was still so inconsistent between shots because the wheel would slow down as the ball passed through.
Yeah. Well, I blame that on my education.
I didn't know that either.
It's not like we learned about angular momentum and
yeah, I mean
that kind of like those kind of energy calculations are a little bit beyond high school physics. So we did miss that. We like didn't even know it was a thing that we could miss. Also, we put in 2 flywheels, and that was just like not the right
Yeah, we did
design.
2 wheels.
A single wheel with a back plate is
much better because
is
you
a lot
want
better.
back for 2 reasons. One, it creates consistency, but 2, like in basketball, you want backspin for like you
Right.
want
Yeah.
to nail the shot off of the backboard and it's just go right in.
Yep.
And we were talking about like manipulating the spin by running them at different speeds, like the 2 wheels, because they were independently powered, and it was just oh god.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, I just put a note on here. This again, the shooter, but do you remember why we went so short as opposed to going taller?
Yes, I do. Part of it is for the low center of gravity. Again, because we really wanted to be consistent on the bridge and on navigating the field. And the other reason is because I wanted to build a small robot for a year.
Fair enough.
So the robot actually is like, if you look at the dimensions of the robot, it's like a couple inches in on every side from the maximum dimensions.
Yeah, I mean it was very like stout. It played good defense. Very low center of gravity. Okay, and then is there anything else mechanically you want to mention about the robot? Talk about on the robot?
Yeah. Let's see what my notes are here. I think you had some questions about the intake and the conveyor belt.
Oh yeah, do you want to just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about that. That we tried to copy the design from Michael 1 because that was very effective. And looking at the balls, we thought they would be pretty similar. Or we thought they actually were pretty similar because of they're squishy balls, they're grippy, and so you can kind of just pull the ball in and then drive it up a polycord belt. So the design and the dimensions of that design were copied from the way Michael 1 is built. And of course, the balls are a little bit different, right? They're a little bit more unwieldy, these pro
foam just doesn't
basketballs.
cooperate.
And it doesn't cooperate the same way. So the balls would squeeze their way out of the polycord. They would kind of like bunch up and go one side to the other.
Yeah, just depending on where you grabbed it.
Yeah, and they don't self-center in the same way that the orbit balls did.
Right.
So eventually we replaced the back set of rollers with a this nice aluminum funnel that Tom Ferguson had made for us at Cox. They rolled out
up to Connecticut with just this thing.
Yeah, because we didn't have the ability to manufacture something that nice. We were trying to. I remember trying to like melt Flexan into a form with a heat gun. It like there was no way for us to manufacture it. So Tom stepped in and basically we reduced the compression and we reduced the places that the ball could squeeze out of, and that did help. That did help a lot. It also made it easier for the front intake, right? The front intake pair has to shove the ball up into the conveyor belt, so that made it a lot easier because it wasn't pushing against 2 frictiony rollers.
So just to describe the system a little bit, so the bottom roller is the intake, and the one behind it is the conveyor. This one, bottom one, runs independent. So it takes a ball. There's a sensor. I think it's right here, and when it senses a ball, this runs up.
Yep.
Not 1 ball's distance.
And that works actually quite well. When at least when we were feeding it by hand, on the field, the ball dynamics change a lot, so it does get away from you. But it worked pretty well to kind of to do that queuing system where it would kind of lift the balls up out of the way as you brought in new ones.
But sometimes they would on the field, like I think what would happen is they would like say this is the roller bar. The ball would come in on the side of the roller, so it would come in, but it would just squish. So it wouldn't move, it would just squish. And as you try to move it, it would kind of deform, but it would move slower up the conveyor. So then
Yeah, that's right. So it would because our conveyor was kind of narrow and it had lots of open spaces for the ball to escape to. That was the problem.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that we did this year was we got rid of most of the open spaces in our robot that a ball could escape to in order to control those foam balls.
Yeah, and we thought about this issue a lot in 2020, and we still ran into a lot of issues as we were building this thing and working through it.
Yeah, a lot of people said that their experience was even worse.
Yeah, especially you arrive at competition and it's always like brand new balls, or you go to a limbs and it's brand new balls.
Right,
so you need to be able to handle both like scuffed up and brand new.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting, a lot of teams prefer, I think it was at Palmetto, everyone preferred the brand new balls and we preferred the like really beat up ones. So like we would pre-match, like we would like looking on the field for the most like destroyed balls. And in 2012, I remember they like let you mess with the balls before the match, and our robot really preferred like broken balls. So I would like kneel on the balls to just like pop them.
Nice.
They wouldn't be as tough.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah. The one thing that we did that was smart, at least on this intake, I think, was and this is one thing that's different from Michael 1, is that the beams that support these rollers are parallel to the polycord. On Michael 1, there's the robot would actually like pull itself because it
like
was a square frame and like a huge rubber band trying to crush the parallelogram. Yeah. So this was, you ask later about like lessons learned, like the difference between what we do in high school and what we do as real engineers is thinking about like beams and trusses and how those are supposed to work. So definitely putting your beams parallel to something that's trying to crush the beam is a lot better than having your crushing force at like a diagonal.
Yeah. I never thought about that in terms of this robot, but definitely.
Yeah, that's why the robot looks like that. That's why it's a little triangle.
And the unintended great consequence was we were able to put in these bars to prop up the bridge later on in the season.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's, unless there's anything more mechanically you want to talk about the spot, let's hop into the New York City Regional.
Sure.
Okay.
I have to admit, I don't remember the regionals that well. I was thinking back about it, and I was like, wow, I remember a lot about designing this robot, but not a lot about how we played. And I'm pretty sure it's because I spent a lot of the regionals scouting.
Really?
I think so. I just really loved scouting.
Hey, that's good. Scouting's pretty excellent. Okay. So I remember we walked into New York City Regional, video unavailable.
Uh-oh.
What, why? You lie. Doesn't even give me the play. It just says video unavailable. It doesn't even give me the playlist. What?
That's
Phil's got to take care of this for me. Oh gosh. Not good. Here, it's all right. This will be fine.
Hopefully something is here.
Okay.
That doesn't look promising.
I have a plan B.
All right.
Just go to the StuyPulse YouTube channel. I wonder if the videos were just taken down, because if so, I can log into the StuyPulse YouTube page and then I should be able to access them. But while we do this, we walked into New York City Regional. I think we felt like pretty good that we had a good shot. Like we had a robot that moved. It had an autonomous.
Yeah.
One
I
thing
think
about
definitely
the
like
autonomous,
it felt like the bones were there.
Yeah. The autonomous, another thing that was overlooked is you actually had to, if we were going to, shoot from the fender, we had to move forward. Whereas if you shoot from the key, you don't have to move forward.
Right.
So, that was kind of an oversight, and driving straight was something we really struggled with. So I think we just ended up shooting like these moonshots. All right, let's see where we are. We're right here.
Yeah.
Are we gonna shoot? I guess no. Did we shoot early on? Maybe.
It's hard for me to tell. It's a little bit like jumpy.
Yeah. Oh, it's jumpy for you.
Yeah, on the
It should
Zoom
be
side
quiet.
it's jumpy. So I just believe you. Whatever you're saying.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't look like we shot an auto, but you can kind of see us driving around this.
Mm-hmm.
So good. So we had a lot of trouble turning with the 8-wheel. What do you attribute that to? Do you think it's tires? Do you think it's spacing?
Yeah. So it's one. Basically, because we did this like weird custom wheel, one of the consequences is that the wheels are completely deflated, and so the drop center principle that we were applying was you were barely experiencing the effect.
So basically, all 8 wheels were on.
So all 8 wheels are in contact with the ground, and all 8 wheels are really high traction. In addition, the drivetrain itself pulls a lot of power for some reason that we never really figured out. The drivetrain really, it had a lot of internal friction, and so we were wasting a lot of power just sort of somewhere in the drivetrain. And I think that was probably actually our inexperience with the belts, I think. So we didn't figure, we didn't really know how to like tension and align the belts that well. So
I also think we were geared pretty high.
That might have been the case, but I think the low gear was still reasonably low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just remember teaching Alex that you had to bounce to turn.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Because you kind of had to like kick yourself back onto the back set of wheels, so that you were kind of turning on a single pair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was just like our drivetrain design. Oh, one of the other problems was because we built a really custom drivetrain, we hadn't put in enough stiffness into that drivetrain, and so when you look at Jobot, he's bowed inward, and so that also generates a lot of friction.
Also, the drivetrain was like crazy heavy because you basically had 2 chassis. You had one on the bottom for the drivetrain and then like one up top for the bumpers.
Yeah, well, the bumper one we built a 16th-inch wall aluminum to keep it pretty light.
Yeah, but still, it's like it was all around, and then it was attached probably with bolts and stuff.
No, actually, Jobot was one of the goals of Jobot was to do a lot of rivets.
Right.
So we did do a lot of rivets. Most of the weight in the drivetrain, I think, is in the 8-wheel hardware.
That's true. Yeah, those pneumatic wheels aren't very light, and then you have the hubs with bolts.
And the super shifters are really heavy gearboxes as well.
Yeah, but anyway, so we go through New York. We do okay. We end up being the 8th Alliance captain, and we. I remember we rejected a team that picked us, and like we definitely shouldn't have because they were actually pretty good. And we just like they like weren't historic. I remember just our scouting was just not as strong at New York City that year, and we like declined that team. Then we picked 2 teams, one of whom was having like major connectivity problems, but was like decent when they were live. It was actually 846, who was a team that we're familiar with nowadays.
Okay.
And I just remember we picked them, and I'm like, "How are you guys doing?" And they're like, "We're disconnecting constantly, and we don't know why." So we ended up like playing one match, then subbing them out, and then trying to triple balance with 2 long bots and a wide bot and no assisters, just to like try something. And we just got blown out of the water. But a really cool thing happened in a limbs at New York that year. Do you remember the alliance that won?
I do not.
So it was 125 who came in from Massachusetts, and they picked 522, who's this little itty bitty robot.
Right, I remember the tiny robot.
Let's see if I can find this clip. And they just figured out, here it is. Here we go. So this is two long bots and just tiny, really small robot.
Is this
And
the one
watch
where
what
they like
do.
shove the robot up on top of the other robot?
Yeah, they use their bridge lower to like wedge themselves up onto, I think it was 1635. So they take up like very little space. So it became like almost a double bounce. Let me try to find a better clip of it. Here, we'll revisit it later. But it was awesome, and they ended up winning the regional from like the 4 lines. It was really creative.
Yeah.
So we exited out of New York City, and it wasn't great, but it was okay.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't satisfying. But it did seem like we could fix enough things to get through Hartford.
Yeah, so we did the conveyor thing we talked about. But the really big move was, there was these rumblings in the first community. And, for the newbies on the team back then, there was a bag day. Now there isn't anymore. So you couldn't work on your robot between events, and we didn't have a practice spot to work on anything. So it was just like what to do at the competition. So we did the conveyor. We rebuilt our conveyor at the competition. And the other big thing that was happening around the FRC world was there was this match from the Robo Wranglers who weren't that good this year, or at least at their first event. But there was this crazy match, and it's like I feel like everyone in FRC watched this match. Do you know the match I'm talking about, Jake? Oops, I spoiled it. Okay.
I mean, I know what happened, but I don't remember the exact match.
But I just remember watching the stream, and people were like in the chat, like Robo Wranglers have something up their sleeves, and the announcer goes, "Rumor has it the Blue Lions have a secret weapon," and it's like, okay, they have 2 wide bots and they have a mechanism bot that they push sideways, but still, how do you get this thing balanced? They have this little stinger that like stabilizes the bridge, so and they shimmy over, and it's just like, whoa, that's cool. I never thought of that. How many people thought of that? And did you work on our stingers?
No, actually, that was mostly Dripto's project. I mean, I contributed a little bit, but that was something that Dripto DeBroy did most of the work on integrating that.
He was our human player that year as well.
Right, and also the director of engineering.
Whatever that means.
Right.
It's a position that doesn't exist anymore, I think, because we were like, what does that mean?
Yeah, well, I think we tried to get rid of it, and then for some reason, like, we weren't allowed to.
But it was, we just kind of shoved these things in there. We put these little Vex roller.
Yeah, I think that was my contribution, was the Vex tread rollers.
Right, and we just fired them into the ground. And we were able to triple balance in limbs, but triple balancing didn't do anything for you in quals.
Right.
But we actually were able to utilize them for the double bounce really well on the coopetition bridge. So like even though
it's a lot easier to balance a bridge that kind of gently gets lifted rather than seesaws from side to side.
Yeah. But I was just like, I think my instructions to Alex were, okay, you fire the stingers and then you just drive backwards. I don't care if you break them. And then we ended up breaking them pretty much every single match, which was, sorry, my bad. That was
it's
bad.
unacceptable losses.
But we were really good at the coopetition bridge. I'll run this at double speed. Oh, it's going to look super choppy for you if I run this at double speed.
No, it's okay.
Okay. So we weren't the strongest scorer. We had level, but we struggled picking up, and we definitely weren't the strongest scorer at the competition. But because of our prowess, we were the 8th Alliance captain. Oh, you can actually see us raising the bridge for our opponents here, which is really great because basically all you need was a drivetrain to balance with us. Did anyone come over? Let's see. Here we go.
This was an interesting mechanic, and they do it a lot more now with these different coopetition mechanics. But it's kind of like interesting to have to work with your opponents and coordinate.
Yeah, especially when you can't communicate with them.
Once the match starts.
Yeah. So it's like, it would be like you go to the strategy meetings and you talk about what the match strategy is and you talk And then you would go over to the other alliance and say, okay, who on your alliance wants to strategize with them? And then we, through the glass, like we would look at them and we'd go like.
That's right. And with the robot just sitting there, like with the bridge down. It's like, we're ready. Come on.
I think we use the stingers here, so you can see we fire the stingers into the ground. The other team just has to drive over.
Yeah, you can see it when the robot does that.
Inch over. Yeah, and the pneumatics just clear. So so like I said, we go through a limbs and we end up seating 8th. We end up as the 7th alliance captain. And unlike at New York City, I think we build one of the best alliances we've ever built. Like really good picks. So it's like
you say that every video, Joe.
Sorry?
I think you say that every video, Joe.
Maybe. Maybe. But I do think that was the one in New York City was the worst alliance we've ever built. So I guess that deleted the videos. God. Let's see what I can find.
Internet history just disappears.
This makes me so uncomfortable having all these tabs open. Okay, I'll find it.
3, 2.
So we end up picking 2 wide robots.
Whoa.
What happened?
No, nothing. It's okay. We were just like.
Okay. So we end up picking 2 wide robots, which allows for us to be able to execute a double climb.
Right.
I'm sorry, a triple climb.
A triple.
If I can find it. Here we go. So we lose the first match. We're playing against the number 2 alliance. They're crazy strong. You can see our moonshots in there. Actually, we shot it so high in the air. So we had 50-59. They would go to the other side. They would just shoot balls over. 230 was a very accurate shooter. And just the 2 of us would score until it was time to go on triple climb. You can see how much we struggled. We're actually not as, we don't miss as much as I remember.
Yeah, we don't miss as much as I remember either. I think it was mostly that we didn't have very good cycle times because of the driving.
Yeah. It was just really hard for us to pick up balls. It was really hard for us to turn. And here we go. There we go. I think this is Chris that we hear so vividly. Plan was 230 would go on, then 50-59 would follow them. And we come over to the other side. You saw how we just kind of like skip over the bump. No problem. That was pretty awesome.
And of course, someone stands in front of our triple balance.
Yeah, but the triple balance was very rare. There were very few teams who executed it in regional play.
Right. Yeah. That was right. It was a big differentiator for the.
It was huge. It was 40 points, and each ball scored was 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot. You basically it was hard to lose if you were able to execute the triple balance. And I remember going into champs, there was someone, I don't remember who, but it might have been like Mike and Justin from FRC Top 25, but someone would gave out Loch Ness Monster stickers to all the teams who executed the triple climb, because it was like the joke was
so special.
Like seeing a Loch Ness Monster. Like that's how triple climb was. And if you look on JoeBot on the tusks that were for the bridge, there is a
That's where you put the sticker?
That's where that sticker is.
Nice.
And we put it on at Champs. Okay, so let's see if there's anything else I wanted to mention about Connecticut. The co-op allowed us to seed high. We ended up getting knocked out in quarterfinals. And we probably wouldn't have won this competition anyway because 118 was here and they needed to win this competition to go to Champs. And they weren't losing.
Yeah.
And so we were effectively our season's over. Okay. That kind of sucks. And then we end up winning chairmans, which was awesome, especially because this year, if you won the competition, you got to cut the net like they do in NCAA March Madness.
Yeah, that's right.
But if you win chairmans, you get to cut the top net. So let me find this image of Drone.
Yeah.
If I can find it. Cutting. This might have been from Champs, actually. Here's us doing the triple climb.
Right, I think those are Champs.
Here we go. So Daron, they set up a ladder for him, and he cut the net off of the competition, and it's somewhere in the lab. So yeah, that qualified us for Champs, which is pretty great.
Yeah.
So we go into
This
Champs.
was our third in a row, or was this just the second in a row?
Third, 2010,
Just the
2011,
third, right?
2012. So it was a big deal because you start talking 3 chairmans in a row, you are in the conversation for Champs chairmans, and I think we're still constantly in every conversation for a chairman's award, and a Champs chairman's award, even though we've won twice since then, although it was back to back, because they had a run of 3 in a row. It's very rare to get a chairman's.
It was that was something that we tried to do that year as a leadership team, was to say as a team, the robot is definitely a very important part of what we're doing, but the work that leads towards the Chairman Award in terms of supporting New York City first, that work is what our team is really about. And I'm glad to see that so much of that has continued to carry over. So I definitely think it's in the future for us.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we get nowadays we don't do as much stuff that just for the sake of chairmans. So it's we'll do, I remember in 2018 we were getting feedback about, well, you do too much unfocused stuff, you're kind of all over the place. I'm trying to get them do you guys want to just keep helping all over the place? And they're yeah, that's what we're gonna do. So that sometimes knocks us, but I'm okay.
Yeah, from what I've seen, I think the difference between a regional chairman's winner and a national chairman's winner is really when your team starts to become a central fixture of your region. So I think the most important things that we were doing at that time were things like being part of beta tests, doing the StuySplash seminars. So really starting to be the mentor team for all the teams.
Yeah.
In
the
New
thing
York
I
City.
Seeing is when we have alums who mentor other teams, even though I love when they mentor us as well. But seeing you and there are some others who are kind of scattered. I know some try with teams and doesn't really work out. That's always tough. But I love when I see that there are teams that are the Bronx Science team. One of our alums mentors them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's exactly what the national chairman's is about the sustainability of the program. So when you're the program of first, and so when you're a team that's sending out students as alums who are continuing to sustain the program, that's a huge deal.
Yeah, but just to talk again about just how impressive it is to win 3 straight chairman's awards at the same event. Especially because back then you can only present at one event.
Right.
You couldn't present at 2 or 3.
And we're talking about out of state. So we were kind of poaching the chairman's award from the local teams.
Yeah. And nowadays we present 3 times a season, so we have 3 shots at it. Then it was just once, and it's incredibly hard to get 3 in a row regionals, like
Right.
wins,
Yeah.
robot wins.
Especially at like the
Chairman's
same
is so much
competition.
harder. Chairman's is so much harder because it's just one. Like, it's not like there are 3 regional winners every year. We won the New York City Regional back-to-back. I'd like to think we would have won it again this year, but
I don't know if you're gonna interview Daron for this season, but I'm sure he has a lot to share about how they worked hard to make sure that they weren't just doing the exact same things over and over again, right? That was one of the pieces of feedback that we got that year, if I remember correctly, was that not only was Hartford impressed with the work that we were doing, but they were impressed with the history of work that we had been doing.
Yeah.
So because they saw us 3 times in a row, and each time we were getting a little bit better at it, that was how we kind of won that 3 times in a row.
Did you present?
No, I didn't present, but I did get to see I did get to see a lot of the stuff behind the scenes.
Okay, so let's transition over to the championship.
Yeah, let's talk about the robot again.
Yeah, so a couple things that we did for the championship, as I recall, is we installed this rescue tape to make the grip a little bit better. So it was just like tape that was self-adhesive that we wrapped around the wheels.
It was a relatively new product at the time too, I think.
Yeah.
It's more common now.
That worked pretty well. And then since we broke the stingers so much, I don't know if you helped Dripto again or if Dripto just did it on his own, but there were new stingers for champs. Do you remember if you worked on that at all?
I probably did. I don't remember it too well.
See if we can find a good image of it. It's actually like a really clever thing that we did I wasn't involved in doing it, to stabilize it. So instead of just a piston with a rod that was firing down, it was like, here, I have some stuff handy.
Oh yeah, I did help with this a little bit. It was like 2 rods.
There was 2 rods, and here we go, 2 pins to represent the 2 rods. So let's say this was the piston, and it would fire down. This rod, it was just like an IGUS bar, just an aluminum bar, was
like
also
a
attached to it, and ran through a bearing.
That's right.
Not like a heavy duty bearing, just one of those IGUS bearings.
Right. Yeah. That was another one of the things that I really wanted to do this year, was use a lot of IGUS parts. Yeah. They're free.
They're free to come in the kit parts. We have so many of them, but they're not the best. But
they're really good at what they do. You just don't need to do it that often.
So when this fired down, all of a sudden it wasn't just this skinny piston. It was this aluminum bar that was supporting it with a bearing back here. So they didn't break anymore. But an issue we ran into is all of a sudden the footprint of the stingers was much bigger. And we didn't have any practice with that kind of change. And Alex, I remember, struggled a lot with just getting it like fired in the right place. Like there were times we fired it into the bridge.
Into the bridge. I do remember that, yeah.
And it just wasn't there. And then I remember we got into this whole thing where like Mr. Clone was saying that we were relying on the stingers too much. And it's like, well, this is the mechanism. This is how the thing works. And like he wanted to stop using them entirely because Alex was struggling with them. And it's like, this isn't, like, yes, he's struggling with it, but it was just a really bad disagreement.
Yeah.
But we also started doing, I don't remember at what point, but we started driving like during autumn to the fender.
Oh, did we? Oh, you're not going to see it here.
Here, let's see. I'm going to have to do this. In auto, which really upped our auto accuracy, which I think was kind of a big problem. But we had to do like 2-point goals sometimes.
Right.
Because
of the caliber of players that you're with.
Yeah, because there was a partner who needed to be right there, and we really needed to be up front. Okay. So you can see JoeBot a little bit more clearly here. I wrote down that the bot's still not very accurate, but I'm thinking that I'm wrong now. Oh, here's what we started playing some defense. We
Yeah,
tried
I
to
think
figure out how we
that was
fit
really a
in
struggle
with
for us
alliances.
at championships because we were such a middle of the road robot there.
And also, it was like because we were long, it made it dictated the alliance too much. So if you have an alliance, the triple balances can at most have one long bot unless one of the robots has a really small. So if you are trying to do a triple balance and you pick a long bot, you basically have to already have two wide bots on your alliance. And a lot of the alliances just had one long robot because 254 was out there who was long and not very good. You can see 254 here. And so it's like, I'm just going to pick a wide robot in the second round and pick a long robot.
Well, I mean, if you look at how much of our robot actually needs to be on the bridge, we don't take up more room than a wide robot. I don't think we managed to sell it.
Yeah. I don't think any team would go for that one, unfortunately. And also, it would have to dictate the order of when we went on. We would have to be coming on last.
Right, either first or last, yeah.
Yeah. And I also remember just like trying to just convince teams to go to the practice field to try the climbs with us. The climbs.
The bridge balances, yeah.
Right. And it was just like hard to convince teams to even do it. Here actually is one of the best robots from that year, 341. They were, I think, the best robot that year. Yeah, and we ended up not getting picked, but I think we still had fun at champs.
Yeah, we definitely did have fun.
And I remember at some point during champs, we were still struggling to drive straight. And we were, I think you were there. We were in like a hallway with the robot just working on autos, which is like wild card stuff that we do. So we were running it, and we noticed that as the robot started, it would turn. Do you remember this at all?
It's coming back to me a little bit.
So what we tried was ramping up the speed of the drivetrain. So it didn't just go straight to full speed.
Sure.
It would work its way up. So it would not do that little jig at the start. And that's something that like we still do today in all our movements. And is a big part of our auto consistency, because what ends up happening is one of two things. Either one side gets grip before the other,
right?
So you turn, or just one side just accelerates a little bit faster than the other, and you turn. But if you ease it up, those little differences aren't as significant.
Yeah.
You can actually see your double thing here in this video.
Oh yeah, you can see it there. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, that was again just one of those things that like, if we knew a little bit more about physics, we probably wouldn't have just made it the pistons to begin with, because those pistons are just not designed to take side loads.
They're not. But if you look at what 148 did, they just had like a beefy piston, and their McMaster sells impact resistant pistons.
Oh, okay. So it's got like a harder
applications.
shaft.
Yeah, we use it for applications like this. I don't know if they sold them back then.
I don't
Probably. I don't know.
We wouldn't have even back then. We wouldn't have even known to look for it. Yeah, you can see just now the robot driving up onto the balls.
Yeah, the plan was if we drive on, just turn till the ball's under you, and then it'll go up.
Yeah.
But a lot of teams had over the bumper intakes this year. We just saw one on 341.
Yep.
And that's something I'd never seen on a robot before this year, but apparently was a thing in like 2000 something.
Yeah, I think the Larry year, there were teams that did that.
Yes.
With the big yellow balls.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like we know about it now. So in 2016, we had an over the bumper intake. This year, we had an over the bumper intake. And you see teams who are younger, who maybe don't have experienced mentors, and it's like they have the same problems we had.
Well, you see on the flip side, you see kind of over the bumper solutions on things like the I forget what the robot is, the 118 like every man bot or whatever,
Mhm.
or the like minimum viable robots.
Yeah, the Everybot, and that
Yeah,
that definitely
Everybot,
does
yeah.
help a lot of teams. Like seeing that stuff. Where
Mhm.
back then, I think the first year of the Robot in 3 Days was 2013.
Mhm.
So like you really didn't know what teams were going to do. Teams were so secretive back then. Now you have like open builds, and like you have
Right.
teams who are sharing their CADs, so you kind of know. And they have like vlogs with actual robot stuff, and like we
Yeah.
stream our lab during the season on Twitch.
Mhm.
None of that was happening.
No, yeah. It was a bit of a different yeah, we were in a bit of a transition time by like 2012 in terms of sharing robot designs.
Yep. Okay, is there anything else you want to say about JoeBot before we look at some cool stuff from other teams?
About Drobot. I mean, not that much. Yeah, I don't really have any other notes here, but I guess I will say that, like, even though we didn't win a lot with Drobot, I'm still pretty proud of Drobot. And part of that is because I had weird secret goals,
Start.
and I got to do all those weird secret goals.
Mm-hmm.
And having done those on JoeBot, I think helped make it more possible to do those things on future robots.
I think I learned.
We definitely, as a team, we definitely learned a lot from putting together JoeBot compared to trying to put together another robot on a kit frame kind of thing. So
Yeah.
we really stretched ourselves as a team. So I think that made a big difference, certainly for me, and I hope for the team.
Definitely. JoeBot, we built JoeBot when I was in college still. So, those are seasons where I'm not around for, 4/5 of the season, right?
Right.
3/4.
Yeah.
But still, I feel like I learned so much just from the mistakes we made on JoeBot.
Right.
It's like you can use a 9mm belt on a drivetrain, and there are teams that do it. When we suggest it's really, it can be a big problem. I don't know if it's really worth it. Let's just add those extra 6mm and move on.
Right.
And it's flywheels, why they're important.
Yeah. I think we
Own
failed
balls being
pretty well.
uncooperative, going over the bumper, 8-wheel drives. Like, be very careful. You could probably just do 6, and don't do a center drop either. Just do omnis. Like, omnis are great.
Yeah.
I'm actually a big proponent of all omni, but I get a lot.
That's a big change from the Joe Blay that I knew in high school.
Well, it's the 2017 3310 that had all omnis just changed everything for me. Then in 2018 we did all omni. It was really good. I think omni wheels are great because you can't get T-boned. Okay, let's look at some cool robots from 2012.
Let's look at some good robots.
I think JoeBot was a pretty good robot, one of the best in New York City. Just
8, 7, 6.
my last years.
0 and liftoff for the final launch of Endeavour.
Good, better.
Expanding our knowledge, expanding our lives in space.
Houston, Endeavour, all program. Roger, roll, Endeavour.
Houston is now controlling. Endeavour beginning to roll over onto its roll program.
Just old school video productions. So
Yeah,
funny.
I mean, imagine being a team so good you compare yourself to the space shuttle.
It's just like this video production of like the text, like I forget, Windows Movie Maker or something. So interestingly enough, 118 did not have an over the bumper intake. Being wide was enough. And they actually funneled before their shoot. They had a lot of jamming problems. The lights were great. I just remember the lights being amazing.
Yeah, we were trying to catch up a little bit in terms of like making nice-looking robots. So
That's a pretty nice looking robot.
Jobot is a pretty nice-looking robot, although we did do most of it with paper and tape.
The eyes, I think, of all the eyes on all the robots, Jobot's are the best.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna skip to the really interesting thing. The 118 had a mechanism. Do you remember this mechanism, Jake?
No.
I'm just gonna. You'll see in a second. So the rule was you weren't allowed to grasp the bridge.
Right.
So they thought they found a workaround. So basically, like, they weren't grabbing it; they just like shoved in to the side of the bridge, and then you notice the bridge didn't move when they were on it.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if you had two robots on there, there you go on the side like that. Or if you had one robot and were balanced, they could just come on like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they didn't ask him a Q&A about it. They showed up to competition, and the referee went, "I don't think that's legal." And then the head referee of FRC was like, "That's not legal."
Wow.
Yeah. But, thinking about this now, this would have been the ultimate place for a suction cup.
Interesting.
Like,
Yeah.
Like we thought of suction cups for 2019, but no one considered them in 2012. And that was just like the 2019 surface was it's got like bolt holes and scratches, and it has,
right.
More importantly, it's like
it's textured.
It's textured, yeah. So which makes it hard for most suction cups to perform on it. But the 2012 bridge surface is just a Lexan piece.
Right. It's a
even easier.
Sheet. Yep.
So I wonder if that would have been okay. I don't think any team tried that.
Well, it would have been interesting to see a triple climb with like a robot suction cup to the one end of the bridge, right?
Yeah, that would have been awesome. Okay, so I thought, I will jump from 118's video to Einstein. I assume you remember what happened on Einstein, Jake. Well, you're gonna flash back.
I'll have a flashback, yeah.
Yeah. So 118 did make it to Einstein, and I've mentioned it before on an earlier show. We talked about it in the 2009 episode. The control system back then had many issues, but they never really happened at big moments. So no one did anything about it. First, was just like ignored the problem. I'm sure there were people working on it, but it wasn't like publicly like, there's a problem, we're trying to solve it. It was just like, okay, we're just gonna move on. Like, we lost Connecticut, we had no idea why in 2009.
Yeah.
So if you look here, you'll see that 118 not moving. This was on Einstein. Almost every alliance had an issue where robots weren't moving.
Right, I do remember this, yeah.
So one of the main reasons was there was someone on Team 548, a mentor, who was on an iPad or something trying to connect to the teams on the field to disable them.
Yeah.
And lots of teams died, and it was a disaster, and Einstein sucked.
Yeah.
Including a team on their alliance. But so after that, they did like a whole investigation. They were like trying to figure out the problems. We switched to the Robo Rio, I think 2 years after. I'm not sure how many years after, but it was.
Yeah, I want to say 2 years after.
And that mentor was permanently banned from first.
Shots across the field, it goes long behind the red lines driver.
Yeah, so that stunk because it was, in a lot of people's opinion, the best game in FRC history. I think it's one of the best ones.
It definitely is one of the most fun to watch.
And Einstein just sucked. There wasn't a single match, I don't think, where all three teams moved 100% of the time.
Yeah, I do remember it a little bit, and I was like, and from the stands, we were kind of like, we really thought that this control system was fixed. Because I started in 2009 when there were actually problems with the control system that were not fixed.
Right. But there were still problems. Like even separate from this, there were still events where there were problems.
Yeah, I remember when they introduced the Jaguars when they introduced the CAN system.
God.
That was a bit of a
Jaguars
disaster.
for those who don't know, the Jaguars is an old motor controller.
Mhm.
That was bad.
Yeah. Well, that was the first controller that used a CAN. They used CAN to communicate, but it also just was like not very robustly built for robotics. So we're very lucky now to have the motor controllers that we have that are built for FIRST Robotics.
Yep. I mean, the motor controllers, the modern ones from Rev and from Vex or actually they're not from Vex, from Crossroad Electronics, are really good.
Yeah. Because
So rare.
they had to build something way better than the Jaguar.
Yep. Okay, so while we're on these Einstein matches, the eventual alliance that won, I think, in my opinion, was the best one, and probably would have won anyway, was really interesting. So it wasn't the top alliance from their division. It was 180, 25, and 16. And 16 going in was one of the best teams in the division, and everyone thought was one of the favorites. And what ended up happening is they had so many struggles during quals. And, you know, at champs, you have 1 or 2 bad matches. It all snowballs really fast.
Right, yeah, it does.
They were so inaccurate that they ended up falling in the second round, and this alliance scooped them up. They still had all these issues with shooting. So what this alliance did was they put them to work. Because they were so fast, they had the swerve drive. They put them to work on the other side of the field, gathering balls and just scooping them to the other side. And they were really, really good.
Yeah, they hit their stride.
And they just they really took this alliance to another level. The other really interesting thing about the 180-25 alliance is they both had a feature which had never been done, I don't think. I've definitely never seen it on FRC robots. Was they didn't bother using CV. They just had flashlights on their robot. You can see 180 actually had 2. They had one for their intake to see what direction they were driving.
Yeah, that's nice.
Flash with flashlight. But it would be on the backboard of the hoop they were aiming at, so they could tell if they were aligned. And it's something that we see a lot in FRC today. Even though CV is a lot easier, you see it on teams as kind of a redundancy, as like a check, like am I aligned? Or if, you know, CV goes down, you still have it. And it's it's very popular.
That's what we did the next year, right? On the Frisbee robots.
Yeah, it wasn't really that useful. We should talk about that. But we did do it in 2016 when we didn't have CV, and it was our only
success.
Way. Yeah, like we went to Einstein in 2016 using a flashlight as our only means to aim. You can see 16 dumping over here, and they were really good at it. Okay. Yeah, it's their
987 nose to
these two
nose,
robots
toe to
are talking to each
toe.
other. So yeah, the Red Alliance here ends up winning the World Championship, but first decides to qualify.
We're creeping toward the end game here.
Next year because of problems on the field. So it's basically like they all won because if you win champs, you get to qualify the following year. Yeah, it was not great.
No, I mean that's the best decision for the teams, but
yeah,
events leading up to it were definitely very unfortunate.
Yeah, there was another really interesting alliance on this field on Einstein, but they barely move. In one of the robots barely moves, so I'm not going to show that. I'm going to show their division match. This is one of the best matches I've ever seen. So the alliance captain of the number 1 alliance is 2826 Wave, who's crazy accurate and really good that year. And they picked 67, who, you know, in a lot of people's opinions, is the best team to pick. But also they're wide, you know, as opposed to 2056 and 1114, who are long robots. Because, you know, 2026 is long, so if they pick one of those teams, they basically give up on the triple balance. They end up picking 67, who's really excellent, and then 1114 and 2056 pair up. So it looks like they've given up on the triple climb. But in the back end of the picks is this little itty bitty robot you see on the left side of the screen, 4334, who's actually today one of the better teams in first, but back then this was their rookie year.
Right, the 4000 were rookies that year.
They were a low-goal scorer. All they had was an intake, and they had this itty-bitty frame. And 1114 and 2056 were like, great. this is the perfect team for us. They go on the other side, they scoop up balls, they dump them, kind of like what 16 was doing, and they fit with us for the triple balance because they're itty-bitty.
They're tiny. Yeah.
So this is finals match 3 from the division. Also in Auton, they would feed 11,
That's right. I
14.
remember that part. There were a lot of robots, a lot of dumper robots like that.
Yeah, for Auton.
There's a score for the Blue Alliance, followed up by the Red Alliance. It's the Blue Alliance out in front, 36-30.
Let's see this.
Really outstanding hybrid action. Number 1 versus number 2.
Yeah, so all these robots are like crazy accurate, good at taking waves over the bumper here. 2056 would score up from against the defender, which made them defendable, but they had 8 pneumatic wheels, which made them really hard to push sideways. Everyone else on the field would shoot from the key. 67 is actually the team we modeled our 2016 intake off of, because they would use it to go over the bumps. You can see them here. They have this beastly intake.
Yes.
And that's where we really got the idea to use an intake to manipulate the obstacles in 2016. So you can actually see them using it a little bit over here to hop over.
Wave scores 3, 6, 9. 2056 OP, they're going to need to shoot mid-range here. 41-43, Mars Wars. They shoot and score. Hot team is up at the key for the Red Alliance.
So it's like a very close match. I'll skip up forward a little bit
Okay.
to the balances. Oh, actually 11-14 guys. I thought I was picking a match where no one died. So red gets the triple.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they don't. Oh no.
10 seconds left.
Oh yeah. Oh.
5 seconds left. 4, 3. There's the triple balance restored.
Look how close they are. This is devastating because the Blue Alliance only has 2 robots. That's the difference between
that's winning and not winning. Yeah.
Look at this little maneuver by Wave. They're on this other team, so they just decide to adjust just a little bit so they can get level.
Right.
And then they come off. Oh, it's devastating.
Sucks.
Yeah. But I remember we've been eliminated, so I use my coach button to sneak up onto the field. So I would just run from field to field with the drivers, and we just I think Chris might have gone down with us too, and we just were listening to what teams were saying and doing, which was so fascinating because I was sitting behind, I think it was 67, his coach. I was just sitting there listening, and just bouncing around. It was really eye-opening. Okay, some other cool robots. We just watched 67. Seen him 118. We talked a little bit about Miss Daisy, but this was, in my opinion, the best robot in the world in 2012.
Yeah.
And you can see its mark on 694 in 2020.
Yeah, I remember Miss Daisy from the moment that we met them through 2012. They were a big inspiration for our team.
We played with them in 2010 and 2011.
Yeah, we were just Miss Daisy is the team that we want to be one day. And they won the National Chairmanship Award in
2010.
2010, right? Yeah.
But this robot, there wasn't really, the thing that struck me about this robot always was there wasn't anything that incredible about it. It wasn't that's made by NASA. We could never do that. It's just it's just an 80-20 chunk of stuff shoved together. This probably isn't even 100% the right choices for materials. And they just had good software with the CD, and they just had a consistent shooter. The ball came out always the same.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much to be said for a team that can get things done on a schedule. And that was not StuyPulse in 2012.
Still not StuyPulse in 2020, but we got
our
chat is very good, and our software team is really, really organized.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Miss Daisy was also one of the teams where we met them and we realized, wow, you can do good robots and also win chairman's awards.
They were
that was a big deal for us. They were the whole package, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Enough about Miss Daisy. Let's talk. The last thing I wanted to talk about was just an interesting alliance that formed at Champs. So I mentioned 148. I mentioned they weren't that strong, but they got a lot better throughout the season.
Sure.
At Champs, they were pretty strong. And the number 1 seed in their division was 33, and they picked 148. The
Okay.
issue is they both shot from the fender. They both had turrets, so they can shoot from either side of the fender. But they both did shoot from the fender, which posed a big problem because that made you really easy to defend. It's like,
Right. It makes your alliance easy to defend.
right, because it's like, okay, you have to put a defender there, period. End of story. Has to be a defender there. And whenever that's like gets dictated in a way you don't want, that's not a good thing. So, this alliance and what happened to it is something I think about often, and our strategy team thinks about often, is alliance spacing, the paths that teams are crossing. And this kind of actually goes full circle to the stuff you were showing in the beginning.
Yeah. If you had the dart system, you would have seen right away.
Yeah. You see that this blue robot goes right there, and it forces the red alliance to shoot from the key, which they're not good at. You see 33 shooting from the key, and they're not very accurate at it. It's not what they normally do. So you don't want that kind of thing. And I remember at Palmetto this year when we were building our alliance, one of the things we were talking about was like, okay, where do we shoot? We were deciding between team 40-20 and 44-51. It's like, okay, where does 44-51 shoot from? They shoot from an unprotected zone. 40-20 shoots from a protected zone. We can fit with each other in terms of the spacing. And when we were looking for a last partner, we're looking, okay, both our robots are tall so far in our alliance. It'd be really nice if our last partner went under the trench. It'd be really nice if our last partner shot from the target zone. And you kind of just see how much this alliance struggles, even though they're both really great teams with strong robots, just because they don't fit well together.
Yeah. That was one of the things that made this game nice. It's definitely like that there was an alliance dynamic that was really important.
Yeah, it was about how you fit together when you were shooting, how you fit together on the bridge.
Literally on the bridge, yeah.
Yeah, literally how you fit together. And this number one alliance ends up getting beat by this pretty great number 8 alliance as they tip over.
And they still win by quite a lot. That's a really impressive upset. I mean, that's like in 2010 the big upset, right? They had only one.
Yeah.
They had one strategy, and it was really good, but it just took one good defender to take it out.
Yeah. Well, they also a little bit of luck. I mean, that was a crazy alliance that beat the 469 alliance. But I think this one's just a really interesting case study because this alliance just didn't fit well together. And it's something you have to consider is where you are on the field together. It's not always true. There are some games where, like 2018, it doesn't really matter. You're going for the same spot, and you just kind of have to figure out how to fit together.
Right.
But I definitely think in 2020, and we're going to be playing this game again, that spacing is really important when you're building alliances. And I often, when we're strategizing for matches, I'll talk through with the strategy kids, okay, where is everyone going to be at certain times? What are the paths going to be? I talk through with our partners, like what path are you taking here?
Yeah, that's definitely the kind of thing that you only get to see when you're doing those exercises of running around the field with people.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Anything else you want to say? Any robots that I didn't show that you want to show, or things you want to say about this game?
No, like I said, I don't really remember the competition season. I think there was so much going on.
You were more of a builder.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just had some questions I wanted to ask you before we close this out.
All right, sure.
Stuff that I think kids on the team would benefit from hearing about. So for starters, I wanted to ask what lessons you learned during your time on the team that you would want to pass along to the students who are currently on the team.
Sure, yeah. So one of them is, the first lesson I think is about, we talked about a little bit earlier, talking about the Chairman's Award. That award is really, it reflects a really important aspect of the team. I think that having the strong, sustainable programs within the team, that's so much more important than having the competitive robot. Having a competitive robot is definitely, it's important, but the sustainability of your program is, it's worth a lot more in the end. So I would just encourage everybody to think about it I don't know how bad it is, but when we were students, right, the marketing team was kind of like the butt of the joke all the time.
Still a problem.
Yeah, I guess I'm sure it still feels that way, but I think, the engineers, you really want to branch out and you want to support that side of the team.
I think
Not
we
just
definitely
because
have
the
a
work they're
little.
doing is great, but because you might have ideas that are really valuable to them.
I think we do have a lot more involvement from other parts of the team in marketing, which is good. But still, it's still like considered like this other thing, because when people think of robotics, their minds don't go straight to marketing. Still, most of our marketing, or a lot of our marketing members are like, let me do robotics. Well, actually, this marketing thing's kind of interesting. Like, they don't jump, they don't like, I want to do marketing. They're like, I want to do engineering. Maybe I don't want to do engineering. Let me check out marketing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it'll always be tough because the robot looks like the centerpiece, but in hindsight, first, the organization is not about the robot.
Right.
And the more that we can play with that attitude, the better chance that we have of being a really like standout team.
Yeah. And I think I think it's important that students who aren't on marketing are involved in outreach efforts, talking to other teams, helping other teams. It's good because I think one of the best things about FIRST is the community, and it's just like meeting people on other teams and befriending them. Like, I have so many people that I know from other teams. It's just like, I'm in, 3 Slack groups that aren't this teams that are FIRST related, right? I have like so many Facebook threads with people from other teams.
Right, yeah.
Just like groups. I was added to this mentor Slack this year that's just like phenomenal. It's like all these they're basically crazy people like me from a bunch of teams who are just obsessed with FIRST in every sense of the word. And
man.
Like, the community is really fantastic. And it's like when you volunteer at events and stuff is when you really get to meet people. So like, I volunteer, I referee at least once a year. I try to game it out, so I get to meet all these people. It's really awesome, fun.
Yeah. I'm a robot inspector locally.
Right. A lot of our students do volunteer at events we attend, but what I want to see is like people after they graduate volunteering and mentoring, and our students volunteering at events that we don't attend. Right.
Right. Yeah. That's something that you get from that attitude of looking at the robot.
The nice thing though is, back when you were on the team, it was pretty much impossible for members to volunteer at events, because like, if you were at an event, you were helping somehow that we needed you to.
Right, yeah.
But now we have I feel like we have so many students who have great expertise, and we have so many students who are very involved that when we go to competition, we can have a student who led a mechanism go and volunteer, and then, like, I'm just thinking of a student, Endar, who led a mechanism and she volunteered at an event. And it's just like, okay, if there was a problem with the mechanism, someone just switched with her and she came back and she worked on it and she was just volunteering. And that's something we definitely didn't have the bandwidth to do.
Yeah, people management is an important skill to have. Yeah, it sounds like it's a lot better than it was when we were students. Related to that, a lot of the soft skills that you get from volunteering and outreach are really important. And that's what makes FIRST students really that's what makes like recruiters look for FIRST students is, not only do you have technical knowledge, but you know how to explain something, and you know what role you play in an organization, what that organization is about, and the ability to talk about that is extremely valuable. The engineering world is still full of people who hate talking to people, and that's not like you don't want to be that person. You want to be a good communicator as an engineer.
And if I were ever to start a company, I'd be hard pressed to hire people who were not involved in FIRST either as a student or a mentor, because it's just like the skills of just being able to work through a build season.
Yeah.
Like, there's just a personality that if you've gone through, the shit, censor that, or maybe.
Yeah.
if you've gone through a season like that,
you get one curse word.
Yeah, it's still PG-13. It's allowed. If you've gone through the shit through a build season, you can do things that just I don't think other people can. I mean, you have to go through a different experience, obviously. Still,
yeah. And when you go out and you look for companies to work for, you want to find companies that feel like a robotics team. You don't want to work at a company where people are put at odds against each other, or the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. You want to work with a close-knit team.
And kind of just like on the topic of skills, are there any other skills that you learned in your time on the team that you use very often today at work?
You know what? I think it's mostly about the soft skills and the teamwork, and a big part of it was recognizing for myself, like my talents kind of stop right before program management. So I'm not a very good program manager, and that's what made me not the best president of engineering in the end. But I honestly just the ability to work with a team and to solve problems on the spot. Having experience with that just continues to make you valuable throughout your career. Those were kind of the best things that I got out of first.
It's interesting as I asked that question of different people, people in different fields. I mean, a lot of engineers, but that's kind of similar answers, similar stuff I hear from all of them.
Yeah, well, you go to college and you realize that everything you were doing was wrong from a technical standpoint. So everybody gets their feet wet, but nobody really learns how the world works until they take some good college courses.
I still don't feel like I know how anything works, but hopefully it'll get better. Okay. And then, this is actually this question I was meaning to ask you. So our leadership has a really tough season in front of them.
Okay, yeah.
With all the COVID stuff. The students under them and a lot of the students themselves, like the veteran members, the leadership, were just robbed of a competition season where you learn a lot. I feel like build season, if you're a young member, you kind of just wade your way through it. But once you get into competition season and iteration is where you can learn a lot. And
you see the problem solving happen very quickly.
Yeah, especially that. So we still don't know what next season will look like in terms of meetings, competitions. But what advice would you give to those students in navigating the coming season craziness?
Yeah. So the first thing is that it's the situation is going to be tough for everybody. And I get to sit on the RPC meetings for First Long Island, and
RPC
as things were
Regional Planning Committee.
Regional Planning Committee. So as things were hitting, it was kind of a disaster. And looking at our team on First Long Island, it's not a particularly resilient system. So we're pretty scared about what's going to come next. So a lot of people are not sure about what they're going to be doing, which means there's a huge opportunity for teams and people who figure out what the smart thing to do is and what the best way to make the first program sustainable through 2021. I think you have to look at each of these challenges as an opportunity. So a lot of funding is going to dry up for teams because maybe you were relying on a local business that's not there anymore, or you were relying on a big business that is tightening their pockets as well. And so that's opportunities to create new forms of fundraising for your team. the fact that we're going to get limited access to resources and facilities, that's a challenge in the real world as well. The real world. First is also a real world. That's a challenge for like what I am now, like a corporate engineer. We're trying to figure out how to solve those problems with remote access and limited access. So learning how to, for example, work on CAD. I know you guys were talking about moving to Onshape, which is in one of your previous videos.
Well, I'm talking about it. I don't know.
I think that's a fantastic idea, because that's a system that's built for remote collaboration.
Yeah. We right now do SolidWorks and GrabCAD, and
mm-hmm.
I am not satisfied with it personally.
Yeah.
But I'm just having a hard time convincing the kids, because they want, a lot of them.
They're very comfortable in SolidWorks.
Comfortable with SolidWorks, and they don't want to learn Onshape because it's,
Yeah.
it is a lot of effort.
Remind them that most of them, if they're smart enough, they won't be using SolidWorks in their real jobs.
That's literally what Ron said. He actually said in 10 years, SolidWorks will be totally different too. So it doesn't even matter.
Right. Yeah. I think that's an important lesson to learn early on, is to not get locked into any software ecosystem.
And the more of them you learn, the easier it gets.
The easier it gets, not only to use the things, but to learn new things.
Right. Like I picked up Onshape pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
Because like way faster than I picked up, SolidWorks, because I've learned Inventor and AutoCAD.
Right.
I'm trying to teach myself Revit now, which is actually totally different. It's not even CAD.
Right. Yeah.
But it's easier than it would be because I've learned other ones. So
yeah. So I think that's one of the things that you can look at as an opportunity to still learn something new, even if you're not in the lab. Let me see. I actually had some notes for this question. Let me see if I missed anything. But yeah, I think it's really like you have to look at each of these challenges and say, how can we turn this into an opportunity, and how can we use our solution to make other people's lives easier first, right? So if you have figured out how to do your robot in Onshape, then you can start teaching other teams how to get their CAD together so that they can work remotely. Or you can figure out how to distribute manufacturing between teams. So if Stuy has access to the only mill in Manhattan for all those teams, you have to figure out how to help other teams use that facility. So that's really what I would encourage the leaders to look at. And then for the younger members on the team to recognize that this is probably not going to be permanent, or we're hoping it's not going to be permanent. And so whatever extra time that you have to continue to kind of teach yourself CAD and how mechanisms work, and the difference between aluminum and steel, and why should you use one or the other, to teach yourself and to learn from other robots out there. If you can just sort of like fill your head with knowledge, then come 2 or 3 years from now, when you're getting to sit in front of a robot again, you'll be able to pick from that knowledge and solve the problems in front of you.
I'm hopeful that these videos will help with that.
They help me. They make my job better.
So, it's I'm skeptical on how many students, like newbies, will watch all of these, but I'm hopeful that like the future leaders of the team are crazy like me and you were when we were students, and just watch all of these crazy videos that I've put together for them, and hopefully learn some stuff. And then, I think just to kind of go a little bit off that question, I think the really hard thing about this in terms of long-term is, our students do a really good job thinking about the future of the team and not just about their time on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Future leaders, I feel like they're really struggling with, their skills, like machining skills, just using tool skills that are not going to be, there's just going to be this learning gap.
Right.
And they're like, how are we going to address this? And I'm just like, teach other things, like address other gaps. Is the best advice I have. It's going to be
that's
tough for those guys.
a great way to look at it. Is teaching. There's so many different things that you have to learn to do FIRST Robotics that you can switch it around and figure out the gaps. And then the next year, when people have to learn, when people have to kind of develop the muscle memory for hand tools again, that they have more mental space to do that because they did a lot more work the previous year studying on how strategy should be done or how their CAD work should be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like
so,
we won't need to learn CAD. The problem
Right.
is they're gonna have to continue this through the fall. So who knows when we'll be able to touch a tool again.
Right. Yeah. Well, that'll be hard. And you're gonna you'll lose your off-season events, and again, you just have to look at that as like an opportunity. Like, how can we change each of these challenges into a chance to teach something different? So what were we getting out of an off-season event that we can still recover? For example, just like the experience of watching robots and seeing how they work, there's now so many teams with everything laid out. And so you can do a lot of hands-off workshops instead, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Jake, thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
For hopping on and doing this call. This was really excellent. I really appreciate how much you prepared for this call. It was really awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. I really love what FIRST is doing, and I really believe in the program and in StuyPulse and this team, what it's done for me. So hopefully this is helpful, and hopefully this is part of building a legacy so that it just keeps getting better for your students.
Yeah, and hopefully I get to see more and more former students like you who are out there mentoring other teams and getting really, really involved in FIRST.
I strongly recommend it. Don't get too attached to StuyPulse. Let it go and extend your hand out.
You're telling me, who is like
not only one person gets to be Joseph Blay. The schools around the country need Joseph Blays. Yeah. So go be a Joseph Blay for someone else.
Yeah, I'm the ultimate StuyPulse addict. So, all right. Well, thanks so much, Jake. So that's it for this one. Hopefully we'll be back next week. I'll see when I can get the 2013 episode together. It's gotten a lot more busy now, but thank you so much for tuning in, and see you next time.